Grappleshot is a new piece of equipment available to Spartan super soldiers wearing the Gen 3 platform. But what was exactly the precursors to this breakthrough technology, and what is the lore surrounding the development of the Grappleshot itself? Hey everyone, welcome back to Installation 00, and today we're going to look at the Grappleshot a little bit more in depth. Now at first glance, the Grappleshot seems like a shiny new addition to the Halo Infinite sandbox and that it's just cropped up out of nowhere. The reality being, however, that the Grappleshot itself did actually have something of a technological precursor that was used on the Mjolnir platform previous to its innovation and development in 2549. In the book, The Fall of Reach, first published 20 years ago in 2001, and of which I still hold my original copy, in the prologue of the book we encounter Spartan Blue Team as they are participating in the Battle of Jericho 7 in the Lambda Serpentis system. And although the Covenant originally invaded in 2532, the battle lasted 3 years, meaning that by the time the Spartans were called in, the date was already February the 12th, 2535. Now bearing in mind by this point the Human Covenant War had been raging for 10 years and the Spartans had been in active duty for just as long, still wearing their Mjolnir Mark IV battle armour. A scene is described where the Spartans have to deal with a V-formation of Banshees. They lure the V-formation in and then jump backwards off of a cliff, and once they had jumped clear they activated the Fulgases they had planted just back from the cliff face. The Banshees were completely destroyed, and the Spartans, although in freefall, were then suddenly slammed against the cliff wall by the stilled cable that was connected to their waists. They then rappelled down these cables and onto a beach where they then met up with the other Spartans. Rappel lines are not an unusual piece of equipment to find on military operations. During the Battle of Onyx, members of Blue Team, Kurt and Spartan 3s used steel braided rappel lines to move quickly through choke points of the Forerunner structures underneath the surface of Onyx. Still further, during Operation First Strike, it was revealed that the Spartans of Blue Team have tether lines connected to their belts that enable them to tether themselves to objects or to each other, and these tethers are also automatically retractable. And even more recently, chronologically speaking, when Blue Team were ordered to go to Castle Base on Reach to recover classified information and material for Dr. Halsey, as detailed in the book The Shadows of Reach, the Spartans used tether lines and rappel lines that connected to the back of their armour and enabled them to rappel down a huge borehole that the Banish had created to burrow down to Castle Base. So rappel lines were already in extensive use with the Spartan program, just not quite to the integrated and official use that we see in the Gen 3 platform with the grapple hook. This came as a consequence of the involvement of civilian contractors. While the development of the earlier platforms of Project Mjolnir, particularly the Gen 1 platform, were highly classified and remained almost exclusively developed by the Office of Naval Intelligence, the Watershed Division and the Materials Group, the development of the Gen 2 platform saw a shift in the policies in regards to who could develop systems and integrations for the Mjolnir platform, from being almost exclusively military and paramilitary to opening up to a large array of corporate entities, both large and small. This was the case for the Grappleshot when an unnamed civilian engineer developed ideas and concepts for the Grappleshot and presented it to the UNSC at some point before August 26, 2549. The proposal was ultimately rejected, with one individual in particular dismissing the high tensile fibre as being nothing more than a rope. This rejection ultimately motivated the civilian engineer to begin active development on functional prototypes. This development project, ultimately called Project Magnus, named after the mythological figure whom discovered magnetism. Ultimately a very apt name, given that the functional idea behind Project Magnus was the conductive transfer of unequal mass and high tensile fibre. The unidentified civilian contractor documented every step of the development of this project with video logs. with each video log demonstrating a particular stage of development. After 77 unsuccessful tests, she conducted the 78th test, which functioned exactly as was intended, firing the grapple hook across the room, embedding into a wall and rapidly pulling the civilian engineer across the room and directly into the wall as a consequence, demonstrating that the prototype was capable of launching the grapple hook itself and the tensile fibre at enormous speed, high enough to impact a surface in order to become lodged via penetration or adhered via magnetics, and then be able to retract the tensile fibre at high velocity, pulling the mass of the person on the other end of it towards the stationary object. Following the successful demonstration of the grapple hook's functionality, the grapple hook was adopted into Project Mjolnir and used on the Gen 3 platform. And with the innovation of this product as a foundation for further development, the Watershed Division and the UNSC then endeavoured to develop further onto the grapple hook, adding additional functionality that was not initially implemented or intended by the civilian engineer who developed it in the first instance. These upgrades include the voltaic upgrade, which electrifies the grapple hook and makes it capable of a stun gun-like effect, which when used against adversaries delivers an electrocution substantial enough to temporarily paralyze or render inert the target in question. The quick shot upgrade reduces the amount of time needed for the capacitors to recharge for the magnetic conduction firing mechanism, ultimately allowing the grapple shot to be fired, retracted and fired again 40% faster. The first strike upgrade allows the user to activate a massive electromagnetic pulse effect upon finally closing with and striking a target that had been grappled. This is likely made possible by the capacitors that give the stun gun effect to the grapple shot overcharging and discharging a massive amount of energy down the tether, which ultimately enables the user to punch a target that has been grappled towards and deliver something akin to a shockwave blast. And the final upgrade is the reachfall upgrade, which actually increases this energy level of the shockwave blast even further, meaning that even targets that are relatively nearby the target that's been grappled towards and stunned will also experience a stun-like effect, granting the user the opportunity to then act while they're still recovering from the stun effect. In simplest terms, the grapple shot is made up of three primary components: the body of the grapple shot, the high tensile fibre, and the hook itself. The hook is seemingly capable of penetrating into rock surfaces as well as penetrating into organic targets and electromagnetically adhering to metallic surfaces. The electromagnetic properties are relatively self-explanatory in that the head of the hook itself will actually contain an electromagnet that is activated upon being fired. The fact that the grapple hook attains a high enough velocity to penetrate not only organic targets but solid rock implies that 1. The hook is actually fired at an extraordinarily high velocity, and 2. The material that the hook is made of is extraordinarily hard. There is currently no information regarding the exact material, so it could be tungsten, it could be a titanium ceramic like titanium diboride, a silica carbide, or judging by its relatively dark appearance, perhaps even a wurtzite boron nitride, which is actually one of the hardest ceramic materials in existence, which is approximately 80% harder than diamond. But of course these materials are very much in the realms of speculation. What is known about the tether, however, is that the high tensile fibre is actually woven of multiple layers of high tensile metallic wire. This is interesting because not only does this increase the tensile strength of the tether in question, but also adds a degree of lateral rigidity to the tether. This basically means that with a rope, for example, when you hold it in your hand, gravity will pull any rope that isn't in your hand downwards towards the ground almost immediately past the end of your fist. But with this multi-layered three-dimensional weave of the tensile fibre, if you hold it in your hand, it will actually remain somewhat rigid past your hand, seemingly defying gravity, but is actually a consequence of its internal tensile strength and rigidity. This property is essential to the way in which the grapple hook fires. The two spinning hubs on the body of the grapple hook itself spin one direction when the grapple shot is fired, and the opposite direction when it is retracted. This form and function bears a striking resemblance to a string launcher, which is a small device that you can hold in your hand, and when turned on it spins two wheels extraordinarily fast, and when a piece of string, which isn't a particularly tensile or rigid material in and of itself, is put through these spinning wheels, it seemingly defies gravity and can be fired so fast out of the string launcher that it becomes something of a projectile. In the Grappleshot's case, at least based on the naming convention of this product being Project Magnus, implying the use of electromagnetics or magnets in general, one would assume that the head of the grapple hook itself is actually fired by something like a linear actuator in the first instance, and then the high tensile fibre is fed out of the grapple hook at extraordinarily high speed by these very rapidly spinning hubs. And once the tether either reaches its maximum extension or impacts a surface, these hubs then reverse and begin to retract the high tensile fibre back into the housing of the grapple shot itself with such force that it can elevate and make airborne a Spartan weighing 450 kilograms at remarkable speed. And at the very rear of the grapple shot there appears to be a large hubbed spool, which ultimately allows the grapple shot's tether to be retracted back in and spooled quite easily so it can be fired again the next time. And again, when commenting on the forces that are implied that this grapple shot is capable of producing, one would assume that the two hubs at the front and the large spool itself all act together in pulling the tether back in, maximising the amount of force that can be channeled, and thus giving all of the force that's required to move a fully armoured Spartan. And while we've seen the development of the grapple shot, there's still much we don't know about the particular workings and mechanics of the grapple shot, including any innovations or iterations that were made on top of the base product by the UNSC once it was implemented into the Mjolnir program. But I'm sure as time progresses, more information will become available, and perhaps even more upgrades, enabling more functionality of the grapple shot beyond its current operational range. Thanks for watching. Stick your comments down below, I look forward to what you have to say. I want to give a quick shout out to my patrons and YouTube members Neek the Silent Cartographer, Siphonic Storm and Todd Morrison, my Tier 0 Transcendients, Brian, Sebastian, Darian, Red Sea, Stalk of the Realms, Falcon X003, Starlight, Alvin, Flaming Halo, Josh, Legions Lost, Kyle, Cat Erdicam, Schneidish, Leon, Ignizzle, Chris, Cooper, Prophet, and Devon, the holders of the mantle, my glorious reclaimers, my loyal metarchs, and all the other patrons and YouTube members that have jumped aboard to support the channel. Much love to you guys, thanks so much for your support. It's keeping things happening and helping development of the channel and future awesomeness in a big way. If you like Halo lore discussed to insane levels of detail, hit that subscribe button and the little bell icon so you're told the second a new video hits the shelves. Be sure to support us on all major social media channels, including Discord, and if you really love the channel, consider heading over to Patreon and supporting the channel over there, or jumping on as a channel member. It means the world to me and affords you loads of great perks and bonuses, while also helping work towards some awesome stuff in the near and distant future. Take it easy everyone, and find peace in the domain.